Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
My house was downwind about 1.5 miles from where the original piles sat out. And I was one of the children who played in the creek with my brother, all the neighborhood kids. We had our own forts. We play in the creek all day in the summers. We'd ice skate it during the winters. We loved that creek. You know, it was a really fun time. And now to think that we were playing in poison, it doesn't really, you can't take away those good memories for me, so I'm still trying to hold on to some of the good, but it's just mind-bending to think that here we are, children, we're having the time of our lives, and it was eventually going to kill a lot of people, and we had no idea.
In the early 1940s, the nuclear arms race was on. A local St. Louis corporation played a significant role in the development of the first nuclear weapons during World War II. As part of the Manhattan Project, Mallinckrodt Chemical Works began processing their uranium for the first atomic bomb. But by the mid-1940s, the company had run out of space at its downtown St. Louis location, so it began to ship the radioactive waste off-site to an underpopulated area north of St. Louis. The radioactive materials were stored in bulk, on the ground, open to the elements, and unattended next to Coldwater Creek.
Many people have difficulty understanding how silent, invisible rays, which cannot even be felt, could be so damaging. Our bodies are made up of millions of cells. They're the building blocks of our blood and tissues. When radiation penetrates the body, the cells are injured. Most of them can repair themselves if the total dose over a period of time is not too high. But if radiation continues, the cells will be destroyed beyond repair.
There's a photograph that always pops up every once in a while, and I even have a copy of it. And it shows some of the Mallinckrodt workers back in the 50s, and they were in the Weldon Springs plant, and they were sweeping up, I guess you'd call them ingots. It looked like the shells. Those are the shells itself that actually contained the uranium. So those shells itself actually was contaminated solid material. So while they're sweeping that up, they are directly being exposed to a much higher dose of radiation at one given time. And that happened quite often. My father started working for Mallinckrodt in 1953, and he, through the years, he worked at all three plants. It's Mallinckrodt on Broadway, worked at the Weldon Springs plant, and also worked at the hematite plant in Jefferson County. In 1957, he was exposed to a direct radiation spill, he and a couple other co-workers. So he spent a few days in a hospital for detoxing, and from that point on, he never really did have, all his health was never brought back to a normal condition. In 1964, he was diagnosed with renal cancer and had lost his right kidney. In 1969, he died at age 48 with renal cancer, metastasized to the lungs and onto the brain.
Now, powerful radiation strikes, and cells are injured or destroyed. If radiation stops before the accumulated dose is too great, almost all of the damage eventually will be repaired. If radiation continues, there are some cells less able to function at top efficiency. Should the body fall behind in its recovery, severe illness or death could result. The key then is the amount, the total dose of radiation received.
For me personally, I had a lot of unusual health issues myself when I was younger, but what really stuck out to me as I was growing up and as a teenager, a lot of people in my network of life, whether it be through my church, my school, sports teams, music teachers. People started getting sick, and they were very sick with rare cancers, rare diseases, unusual things, and most of these people had a pretty conservative lifestyle. And so I myself, I'm an accountant, and so I started keeping a list because that's what I do. And it just didn't sit right with me that I knew so many very ill people. And it wasn't until 2011, until a friend of mine from high school named Jeff Armstead, he started a group on Facebook because he thought something might be a little odd. So people started coming forward very quickly with a lot of rare cancers and unusual cancers, cancers that we have learned are linked to ionizing radiation exposure. Some of the rare cancers, one in particular that's really just hard to wrap our brains around is appendix cancer, a very rare form of appendix cancer. We have more than 45 cases that have volunteered to come forward and share, yes, my loved one or myself, I have been diagnosed with this rare cancer. And from information from the federal government, we should have maybe 2 or 3 cases in this geographical area based on our population size, but we have over 45. We also have just really high numbers of brain cancer, brain tumors that are fatal. We also have a lot of non-smoking lung cancer, a lot of female sexual organ cancers, and breast cancer. And we also have things like male breast cancer. And we have a lot of pancreatic cancer. We have original source liver cancer, so not metastasized liver cancer, but cancer that actually originates in the liver. We have a lot of colon cancer and stomach cancer, so a lot of digestive tract cancers. We also have non-smokers reporting throat cancer. In addition to those cancers, we have autoimmune disorders, in particular lupus. We have streets where you'll have 3 or 4 houses in a row with people saying they have lupus. And then you have multiple sclerosis in very high numbers as well, which is an autoimmune disorder. So MS and lupus both. We also have reports of other autoimmune diseases that seem very unlikely. But the thing also about lupus is we have men reporting that they have lupus, which if you study lupus, it's typically presenting in a female, but we have a lot of males who also have reported lupus. One other thing I do want to mention is we have a lot of birth defects in our children, both birth defects that take their lives as well as birth defects that affect their development seriously.
An atom is part of a molecule, and molecules are parts of the cell. The cell is the structural and functional unit of all living matter, a tiny machine with a basic job to do. Cells, operating with thousands of other cells of various shapes and performing special chores, make up tissues and organs. Organs are departments in a complex factory, the human body, which is engaged in the manufacture of an important product, life. An atom then seems unimportant and infinitesimal. A tiny cog on a small wheel in a miniature machine which, if multiplied millions of times, forms the going concern that is you. But if enough of the cogs are broken through ionizing radiation, the gears grind, the machines falter, stop, the factory shuts down.
My wife and I met in high school, and we were married in February of 1970, and we moved here in Florissant in 1974. Our first child, Stephen, was born in 1971, and it was at the ideal time for the kids to be playing in the creeks as he was growing up, as well as sport activities, everything from soccer, baseball, and so on. So we had a lot of airborne material and contamination really that was blowing around in the 70s and 80s as these kids were growing up. Stephen contracted appendix cancer, and that was diagnosed in 2011. Okay, he went through a pretty serious surgery in Baltimore in July of 2011, and the amount of mucin and tumors removed from his abdomen equaled the size of a soccer ball. Okay, he did pretty well for a couple of years after that. And then in March of 2014 is when he became very ill again, and they were not able to do any additional surgeries on him because he became systemic, which meant that all the vital organs in his body were covered by the tumors itself, and to remove any of that would cause another organ to shut down. So you would have just constant organ failure. All right. He died on July 20, and he passed away on July 21st of 2015. It was 99 days ago.
Alex Jones here to break down some exciting developments in the area of research concerning supplemental iodine. It's nothing less than phenomenal. I began to get into iodine a few years ago because it was helping me and my family so much get healthy and detoxify. And I used some of the mainline iodine supplements and they upset my stomach and I had some issues with it. Until I discovered a product being developed by Dr. Group, who I was already interviewing as an expert on my radio show, and I began taking the product before he actually rolled it out. You now know it as Survival Shield True Nascent Iodine that your body can really absorb. Then, about a year ago, he said, listen, if you think this is powerful, I'm going to come out with rare earth, deep earth crystals that are incredibly powerful that no one else has as a source for their iodine from between 7,000 and 12,000 feet, literally drilled out of the ground. You put it on a hot plate and it turns into the pure gas. No one else has 99.99% pure iodine. And the results that I personally have had have been life-changing. I was over 270 pounds. And with the iodine, exercise, and better diet, I have lost now more than 50 pounds total, and I'm continuing to lose the weight. I have more energy, my libido, all this crap came out of my skin. I believe our research is conclusive. This is the best iodine out there. And I know this for a fact. Nobody else has got iodine based on these pure crystals, ladies and gentlemen. This is innovating. This is trailblazing. And the best part is it helps fund Infowars.com, the radio show, the TV show, the whole media operation promoting true libertarian ideas.